Under the glimmering fireworks and the celebratory cheers of New Year's Eve, a chilling tale unfolded in the heart of New York City. This city, dressed in a brilliant tapestry of lights and bursting with palpable energy, anticipated the new year with its typical enthusiasm and splendor. Majestic skyscrapers towered like gigantic guardians, their illuminated exteriors casting an ethereal glow over the bustling streets congested with jubilant party-goers. The group of friends, a diverse mix of young adults in their 20s, were indistinguishable from those around them. They were caught up in the moment, laughing, teasing, and raising their glasses to the year that had passed and the one that was to arrive. Their faces mirrored the bright sparkle of the fireworks, their eyes gleamed with anticipation, their hearts pounded with exhilaration, and their spirits were lifted by the surreal environment. They epitomized youthful enthusiasm, blissfully naive of the foreboding turn their night was taking. As the clock ticked towards midnight, they found themselves in the pulsating heart of Times Square, the central hub of the city's New Year celebrations. Surrounded by a throng of excited onlookers, they huddled together, their cheeks rosy from the winter chill and the thrill of the moment. The air was thick with the echoing voices of thousands counting down in unison. 10, 9, 8. The air was electric, the anticipation tangible. 7, 6, 5. The friends clung to each other more tightly, their breaths getting uneven as they braced for the final countdown. 4, 3, 2. Their eyes were fixed on the digital clock looming above them, its flashing numbers serving a surreal reminder of the swift passage of time. 1, and then silence. The clock rang out, making its mark on the end of 2023. In that instant, it seemed as though the world was holding its breath. The crowd's noise dissipated into a quiet murmur. The fireworks that had adorned the sky moments earlier appeared to freeze, their brilliant trails hovering in a perpetual glow. It was as if time had halted, suspended in the transition from one year to the next. And then, turmoil broke loose. A nightmarish scenario started to unravel, dramatically shifting the trajectory of their peaceful night. The joyful cheers gradually transformed into terrified shrieks. The fireworks, once a symbol of joy and celebration, now painted a sinister backdrop to a terrifying event. The friends, who had been joyously celebrating moments prior, found themselves in the throes of an incomprehensible horror. One after another, they were pulled into a whirlpool of fear and uncertainty. Their laughter morphed into cries, their playful banter into desperate pleas, their anticipation into a horrifying reality. Each one was ensnared, struggling in the ominous underbelly of a city they thought they knew like the back of their hand. As they battled for their survival, they were forced to question their faith, their fortitude, and their humanity. Their ordeal was a brutal test of their courage and willpower. They fought, they wept, they clung to each other, gaining strength from their collective determination. Through their gruesome experiences, they unearthed parts of themselves they never knew existed. They confronted the fragility of life, the transient nature of time, and the unstoppable resilience of the human spirit. Their night of celebration morphed into an endless, horrifying night, a nightmare that seemed to stretch out indefinitely. Yet, despite the gloom, they held on to a flicker of hope, a beacon that guided them through their trials and tribulations. A group of friends found themselves tangled in a nightmarish ordeal that would forever haunt their lives. They had become victims of a chilling tale, one that unfolded under the glimmering fireworks and the celebratory cheers of New Year's Eve in the heart of New York City. These were not ordinary friends, but a circle of thrill-seekers who thrived on the adrenaline of the unknown. This unusual group, bonded by their shared lust for the extraordinary, found ordinary life to be painfully dull. They lived on the precipice of the unknown, eager for the thrill that came with stepping beyond the ordinary world. Their friendships were not built on common interests, but rather on their shared lust for life's hidden mysteries, their insatiable thirst for the unseen and the unheard. As they drew to a close, their quest for the extraordinary led them to an idea that gave them a collective thrill. They opted to bid farewell to the ordinary and seek communion with the extraordinary by participating in a séance. It was not just any séance, but one they believed could bridge the gap between the living and the dead. Their hope was to communicate with spirits from the beyond, to engage in a dialogue with the unseen and unheard entities of the world. However, their curiosity was not without consequence. Every step they took towards this unknown was filled with an incomparable thrill, but also a deep, unsettling dread. The anticipation of the unknown was intoxicating, creating an exhilarating high that spurred them onward. But despite the thrill, an underlying fear hung in the air, a foreboding sense of the horrors that might await them. They approached the seance with a mix of excitement and trepidation, unsure of what they might awaken. However, little did they know their curiosity would lead them down a path of unimaginable horror. The seance began in the deserted basement of a neglected, weather-beaten edifice. This ancient building, standing as a monument to elapsed time, bore the scars of years unnoticed, adding an extra layer of uncanniness to the entire scene. The room was a testimony to the passage of the years, its stone walls damp and cold, the air thick with the smell of mildew and neglect. This was an environment steeped in an eerie, almost palpable silence, the kind of quiet that whispers forgotten stories, amplifying the echo of every minute sound. Yet, this profound quietude was punctuated occasionally by the distant merriment of the outside world. Sound bites of joyous laughter, cheerful conversations, and festive celebration seemed to find their way into the basement, creating a stark contrast against the ambient gloom. As the gathering slowly began to chant the arcane incantations, the atmosphere of the room, an unexpected icy gust of wind burst into existence, sweeping across the room. It danced a wicked waltz with the flickering candlelight before extinguishing them unceremoniously, plunging the room into an impenetrable darkness. The sudden absence of light seemed to swallow the participants, their voices still echoing in the pitch-black void. The room was no longer simply a room. It was now a nexus of the unknown, a gateway between worlds, an abyss of uncertainty. As they started chanting the incantations, a cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles and plunging them into darkness. Suddenly, a loud guttural growl echoed through the room, sending a wave of fear through them. The noise was absolutely terrifying, the kind of sound that would haunt a person's nightmares for years. It was as though the very walls of the room were vibrating in tune with the creature's anger. The once serene atmosphere was now vibrating with an unseen energy, as if the air itself was in distress. A chill ran down their spines as the temperature dropped at an alarming rate. Gradually, the warmth of the room was replaced by an icy cold that seemed to come from nowhere. It was an unnatural cold, the kind that seeped into your very bones, making you shiver uncontrollably. As they exhaled, their breaths transformed into mist, hanging in the air for a brief second before disappearing. The sense of dread was tangible, a heavy weight pressing down on their chests. A sense of absolute terror spread through them, stronger than anything they had ever experienced before. They looked at each other, eyes wide with fear, unable to comprehend what was happening. The spirit they had invoked was not a friendly one. It was malevolent, filled with rage and resentment. In the blink of an eye, things started flying off the shelves, the room shaking as if in the grip of a mighty earthquake. The friends scrambled to escape, but the door wouldn't budge. It was as if an unseen force was holding it shut, trapping them inside with the hostile entity. Hours seemed to pass in this terrifying ordeal, each moment stretching into an eternity. As dawn approached, the violent tremors gradually subsided, the growls faded, and the door finally swung open. The friends stumbled out, their faces pale and their bodies trembling from the horrifying experience. In the aftermath of this bone-chilling New Year's Eve, the friends were left deeply traumatized. The old building was demolished, the city officials deeming it a safety hazard. However, those who dare to venture near the site at midnight still report hearing faint growls and feeling an icy chill in the air. This tale serves as a chilling reminder that curiosity can sometimes lead to terrifying consequences. As we step into the new year, may we remember the story of these thrill seekers and the night of horror they experienced on the eve of 2024.